When we have a new guest to join, to introduce His Grace. He is a long time devotee in ISKCON. He's been with ISKCON for more than 50 years now. And he's traveled in many countries serving the mission of our Divine Grace in Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, serving in different roles across the world in different temples. One of the most recent temples is the and up to which he settled in Cape Town and served the congregation. He's currently a spiritual master in Cape Town, and today he'll be the one giving the lectures to us. I hope you enjoy. Please take advantage. There's so much to learn from the knowledge that he's acquired over the years. Thank you again for watching. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you everyone for coming today. We'll sing our traditional bhajan inaugurated by Srila Prabhupada. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Kudi Jana Bala Sri Bala Kudi Jana Bala Sri Bala Nana Prajashana Ganjana Nana Prajashana Ganjana Thanks. Om Jnanatamrandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manovistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakadamayam Dadati Swa Padantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Zitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakapachuvishcha Kripa Sindhu Vyevacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudeva Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So we are always blessed by Srila Prabhupada, by his mercy in coming to establish Krishna consciousness in the Western world. We may be Southern world, but it's still basically Western. People outside of the Vedic culture. So in India, the knowledge of devotional service has been current since the beginning of time, practically speaking. But in the Western world, this information was delivered by Srila Prabhupada. It was transplanted from India to the Western world. And it's growing. It's growing very nicely. I don't know if anyone does any gardening, but if you have to transplant, you can go down to Stotels or to Stork Ayers, and it looks beautiful there, the nice flowering bush. But when you put it in the ground at your house, it just doesn't make it. It doesn't survive. What to say, grow. So it takes an expert gardener in order to transplant something which is practically speaking completely foreign. Srimati Tulsi Devi here. It took some time for Tulsi Devi to be cultivated in the Western world. Srila Prabhupada, in one of his books, he gives credit to Srimati Govinda Dasi, for her being able to cultivate and grow Tulsi Devi in the Western world. Otherwise, she's not an inhabitant of the Western world. She only grows where there's devotion to Krishna. And before Prabhupada came, there was no devotion to Krishna in the Western world. So, Srila Prabhupada has brought the teachings of the Goswamis, in particular Srila Rupa Goswami, who presented many books, and particularly the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, presented by Srila Prabhupada as the Nectar of Devotion. So we're trying to cultivate the mood of devotional service. And Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, he begins by awakening us to our real position as not these bodies, but spirit souls. So Srila Rupa Goswami has given 64 items, 64 activities that one performs in order to develop devotion to Krishna. We will concentrate, and Srila Prabhupada and even Lord Chaitanya himself concentrated on 5 items, which basically speaking we do every day. And especially those who come here on the Sundays, we are cultivating these 5 items. Sadhu Sangha, the association of devotees. We may not be sadhus in the technical or the strict definition of the word, but anyone who's pursuing knowledge of Krishna is the beginning stages of being a saintly person. Sadhu Sangha, association with devotees. Nama Kirtana, chanting the holy names of the Lord. Kirtan, there's 2 kinds of chanting. There's the individual chanting, the japa mala, the japa that devotees do every day. And then there's kirtan, like what we were doing. If I'm chanting by myself, that's nice. But when you have 40, 50 people chanting together, then the power and the purification is very great. So Nama Kirtana, Bhagavat Shravan, that's what we're going to do now. We're going to study here from Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, the words of the Supreme Lord. Words spoken by the Lord or about the Lord or his pure devotees. Mathura Vasa. Mathura in India is where Krishna was born. Mathura Vasa means a holy place. Holy place. Where only holy activities are going on. So that's why this temple is here. It's been here in this building since 1988. 1988, this building has been here and is still going on, simply for the purpose of providing a place for people to hear about Krishna. And that makes it a holy place. In the Vedic literatures, there's a verse that Naham Tishtami Vaikunte. Vaikuntha is the spiritual world, Krishna's place, his residence. But in this verse, Krishna is saying that I'm not in Vaikuntha. We're trying to get to Vaikuntha. And then now Krishna is saying, well, I'm not there. Krishna says, I am where my devotees are chanting my glories. Adyacha Gayanti Mad Bhakta, where my devotees are chanting. So any place, it doesn't have to be a temple per se, it can be your own home, where people are coming and chanting about the Supreme Personality of God. And in that way, our homes and any place can be sanctified by hearing about Krishna. So that's the Bhagavat Shravan, the Mathura Vasa. And then there's Sri Murtarya. Shraddha Savan, to worship the deity with love and faith. So that is going on here. So we're trying to cultivate devotional service. And Krishna is explaining these principles of devotion. And we're going to discuss chapter 2. Chapter 2, we've been asked to go through the Bhagavad Gita step by step. Originally it was verse by verse, but we've been allowed to move a little further along. So we're going to discuss chapter 2, just the first half. The first half, because Krishna is speaking, and then he changes his focus from simply explaining knowledge to begin to explain what is yoga. So in the Bhagavad Gita generally, Arjuna is faced with a difficult situation of conquering, fighting against his relatives. His relatives, sometimes we're wondering, I mean, maybe Bhishma, Drona, yeah, but the Kauravas, they really didn't treat the Pandavas very nicely at all. So with relatives like this, who needs enemies, kind of thing, we may be thinking. But still, Arjuna is a good soul, and he's compassionate. When he asked Krishna to bring the chariot between the two armies, millions, we can't even understand, millions of soldiers were there to fight. And when he sees all of his family members, his relatives, his teachers, his grandfather, his fathers, he sees all these people, then his heart becomes filled with compassion. And he doesn't want to fight, doesn't want to fight. So he has this compassionate nature. This is explained in the first chapter, particularly a verse. I do not see how any good can come from killing my own kinsman, nor can I, my dear Krishna, desire any subsequent victory, kingdom, or happiness. When all those from whom we may desire kingdom, happiness, and life itself stand before us. So he's compassionate, but it's a selfish compassion. Selfish with him and his family. He's not thinking of the big picture of the world and the society of persons who live in society according to goodly and godly government. So the first point is compassion for his relations. 2, how can he enjoy? How can he enjoy if he kills his family? I mean, you want to enjoy, everyone wants to enjoy, but you want to enjoy with somebody else. It's not just me. I have to have people that I can show my car off to. I have to have people that I can invite over for dinner or go to watch the football game. I have to have relations. So how can I be happy if I kill all of them? Not a good idea. So then he's thinking of his own enjoyment. And then he's thinking of sinful reactions. Sinful reactions. Sin will overcome us if we slay such aggressors. Destruction of the family, corruption of women, and unwanted progeny. These will all be the effects of killing the relations, the men especially. The ladies weren't fighting. Sinful reactions. Sin will overcome us if we slay such aggressors. And number 4, destruction of dynasty. Because we don't think in that way. We don't think so much. Of course, In the African culture, they do talk about ancestors and like that. Uh, and also in the Vedic culture, it's there. But it's the destruction of dynasty. All community projects and family welfare activities will be devastated. And Arjuna says that the destroyers of family tradition live always in hell. Live always in hell. And then the fifth point is indecision. He doesn't know what to do. Shall we kill them or shall we be killed by them? So as the second chapter begins, Arjuna acknowledging that he can't figure out what to do, he surrenders to Krishna. Karpanya dosho pata swabhava Chami dvam sarma samuda cheta. Please complete it. You know. What's the rest of the verse? Yat shayaksham ichitam buhitam me sisyasteham sarimam tvam prapanam. Yes, Krishna. Arjuna says, that now I am confused about my duty and have lost all composure due to miserly weakness. In this condition, I'm asking you to tell me clearly what is beneficial for me. Now I'm your disciple and a soul surrendered unto you. Please instruct me. So this is where the Bhagavad Gita really begins. Because Arjuna is surrendering. Arjuna and Krishna were friends, they grew up together, but now friends won't help. He has to surrender as the disciple. And he's trying to surrender. He says he'll surrender, but 2 verses later he says, I shall not fight. I shall not fight. So that's interesting. Anyone fighting for himself and his family. Arjuna was fighting for himself and his family, and Krishna, in the course of the Bhagavad Gita, convinces him to fight with devotion and with the mood of service to him. So this is the whole discussion that Krishna explains to Arjuna. So it's an interesting point, because sometimes people criticize that Arjuna was a nice guy, and here's Krishna, mean old Krishna. He's encouraging Arjuna to fight in a battle and kill. If you read the Mahabharata, thousands and thousands of people were killed each day. It was a bloody massacre, practically speaking. And here, Krishna is encouraging Arjuna to fight. So, what kind of God is that? What kind of God is that? But the example is given of a doctor. A doctor. Maybe some of us have had operations. I've had knee replacements. So, practically speaking, the doctor is sawing off your leg. And then he's putting a prosthesis in there. And that ultimately is to improve mobility and getting around like that. But one may think when the doctor takes out the knife or the saw and starts cutting on a person, this cannot be good. It cannot be good. And in the same way, the doctor, he's operating, he may be doing a triple bypass, a quadruple bypass. And it doesn't look very nice if you just walk into an operating room and see this person being cut open. We don't want to get too detailed, but that cutting, it's not like being mugged on the street and somebody pokes you with a knife, or as they say in Cape Town, one poke, 2 holes. One poke, 2 holes. Big knife. We had one time when we were staying here, there was a man caught in some of the back rooms there, and the brahmacharis had caught him and brought him, and he was a burglar like that. So we sat him there and we were talking to him, kind of preaching to him. We had called the police, and the police came and asked us, well, did you search him? And we said, no, we didn't search him. And he pulls out this big knife. So, you know, we were talking nicely, but if the talk had ended up being more antagonistic, he could have easily pulled that out. And one poke, two holes. Means one side, the other side. Anyway. But violence has a purpose. Violence has a purpose in order to remove unwanted elements. We can get into a big discussion, which I don't think we will, about capital punishment and things like that. But in a battle, it was the Kshatriya's duty to fight. And Krishna brings this point up within the pages of this second chapter. That understanding that fighting is your duty, you should not refuse to fight. If you do refuse to fight, the other fighters, the other Kshatriyas, they will think that you have left the battle out of fear only, and thus they will consider you a coward. A coward. So violence is used to cut out bad elements, just like the knife is used to cut out a tumor or some bad part of the body that's contaminating the rest of the body. So violence has its purpose, and Krishna is encouraging Arjuna, you have to fight in order to remove the bad elements, which were Duryodhana and his brothers, and all the persons who decided to fight for a bad cause. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, it's explained that Bhishma was also a great devotee. And for some reason, he ended up fighting for Duryodhana because he felt obliged, because Duryodhana was running the kingdom and caring for him and providing him with accommodation and food. And he decided to fight for Duryodhana. But the Bhagavatam, especially in the third canto, explains that Krishna wanted to prove, even though Bhishma was the greatest fighter, he was greater than Arjuna, greater than anyone. Prabhupada says that he could not win on the wrong side. Could not win on the wrong side. So Bhagavad Gita is giving us the opportunity to be on the right side. Be on the right side. And therefore Krishna has spoken these words in order to help us understand who we are, what the purpose of this existence is, and how we can make this life perfect, more than just what a normal materialistic life is. So Arjuna he's complained about killing his relatives, and then in text number 9, second chapter, he says, I shall not fight. I shall not fight. And Krishna goes right in. Asochan, amvasochas tvam, pragyavadams chabasase, gatasans, agatasans cha, nanasochanti pandita. Blessed Lord said, while speaking learned words, you are mourning for what is not worthy of grief. Those who are wise lament neither for the living nor the dead. So this material existence is based on this temporary body. It will live for some time, and then it will dwindle and die. So Arjuna was basing his whole understanding on the temporary body. So Arjuna was actually a great great devotee and a great servant of Krishna. But Krishna chose him to place into illusion so that he could be preached. So Arjuna he represents us because we're uh, entangled, we're confused by this bodily conception of life, that I am this body. I'm a male or a female, I'm young, I'm old, I'm rich, I'm poor, I'm fat, I'm thin, I'm healthy, I'm unhealthy, I'm old, I'm young. So many things that are just designations for this outside cloth. And this body is not who we are. Srila Prabhupada, one time, a devotee explained to Prabhupada, he said, just accept, when I tell you that you're not your body, because we're thinking that way. And we have not only the body, physical body, but we have the subtle body of mind, intelligence, and false ego. So it's a double covering. So Krishna is in the next few verses, Natvevaham jatunasam natvam neme janadipa nachaiva na bhavishyama sarvevayam atapuram. Never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings, nor in the future shall any of us cease to be. And one of the most oft quoted verses in the entire Bhagavad Gita, in all the 700 verses, chapter 2, verse 13. Oh, come. Dehi nosmin, yata dehe, kaumaram jovanam jara, tata dehantara praptir, dearest tatra namuyati. As the embodied soul continually passes in this body, from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. The self-realized soul is not bewildered by such a change. So there are a number of verses in the first part of the second chapter. This is number 13. Number 20, one of the more famous also verses, that Najayate Mriyate Vav Kadachin Nayam Bhutva Bhavita Vanabuya Ajo Nitya Shashvato Yam Purano Nahanyate Hanyamane. Should we read? For the soul, there is never birth nor death, nor having been once being does he ever cease to be. I'm using the older Bhagavad Gita version. He is unborn, eternal, ever existing, undying, and primeval. He is not slain when the body is slain. And then there's so many verses, but number 22 as well is not so, it's a little tricky on its Sanskrit. Vasamshi jirnani yata vihaya navani granati naroparani tata sharirani vihaya jirnani amyani samyati navani dehi. As a person puts on new garments, giving up old ones, similarly the soul accepts new material bodies, giving up the old and useless. So we had a little fellow crawling along here. So he had a new body, and some of us have old bodies, but ultimately we have to give them up. They become useless. You may have a nice car, but over the years, of course, they're generally built with planned obsolescence. So your car will only last so long. It was a really good car, then you could replace the oil and change the filter, and you could keep it for 20, 30 years. But depending, you get your car is packing up after 4 or 5 years. So it's obsolete. So these bodies, they get to the point where they can't be used any longer. They become useless. And we have to give them up. So then what happens? What happens? Krishna says, for one who is dead, birth is certain. And for one who is dead, birth is certain. Therefore, in the unavoidable discharge of your duty, you should not lament. So, Krishna is explaining very pertinently in this second chapter, at the beginning of the chapter especially, it's describing the different by jnana, by the use of knowledge, Krishna is explaining how this compassionate argument of Arjuna can be defeated. It's defeated. Those verses up to verse 30, practically speaking. And then Krishna defeats his argument of enjoyments as well. 31 to 37, and sinful reactions. Perform beauty yoga, and then the destruction of dynasty. So Krishna is basically destroying all of Arjuna's arguments about what is the purpose of life and how he can perform his duty without disturbance. Sorry. So this goes on till verse 37. This is where we're going to stop. 39, sorry. Esha te bihita sankhye buddhir yoge tvimam shrinu buddhya yukto yayapartha karma bandham prapasyasi. Thus far I've declared to you the analytical knowledge of Sankhya philosophy. Now listen to the knowledge of yoga, but whereby one works without fruitive results. O son of Partha, when you act by such intelligence, you can free yourself from the bondage of works. And we're going to leave a few minutes for any questions. Something going around.
So busy, very
all right. Okay. Carry on.
Could this violence or struggle be compared to washing the filth from your hands, where sometimes your hands are easy, it's easy to clean off, and sometimes when your hands are really, really dirty, you have to really, really get into cleansing your hands. Could it be compared to, in a way, with washing your hands, in a way with cleansing your life from filth?
It's a good comparison because sometimes you can wash your hands. Sometimes you can warn a person, don't do this, and it can be accepted, and therefore the person will desist in what they're doing. And sometimes you need stronger medicine, stronger response. And therefore you may require stronger cleaning agent. Of course, if you're talking about your hands, then you can only use to a certain level. You can't use caustic soda to clean your hands. You'll clean your hand right off. So that's the problem in society. That is the duty of the administrative Kshatriya class, is to protect the society. Kshatriya, shat means to hurt. And sometimes the parents have to hurt the child, but it's not done out of vengeance. or anger, it's done out of a mood of service. It's done out of the mood. The pen doesn't work.
Um, could it then be seen that that's some type of cleansing could be seen as a form of discipline?
Yeah. And therefore, in the Vedic culture, children were trained from a young age. The boys, especially in the upper classes, the Vaishyas, the Kshatriyas, and the Brahmanas, the parents would give their children to a guru to train from 5 years, because the parents understood the only thing I can successfully do is spoil this child. I can do it. I can spoil one, I can spoil 10. But if I give my child to a spiritual master, to a qualified saintly person, then he can make them into great, valuable personalities in society. So they would do that. And then the child would stay with the guru till 25 or 20 years even. And then at that time there was a choice. The child felt that they could continue with a celibate lifestyle unlimitedly, or then they could continue with the guru, or if not, then they would go back to the family and become married and carry on the occupation generally of what the family was engaged in. So, in that way, the society had a purpose. People were brought into the world in order to be a benefit to society. You didn't have beggars at every corner. Begging was allowed, but only for saints. The only people who were allowed to beg were saintly persons, and they begged in order to develop humility and pridelessness and dependence on God. Dependence on God. You wouldn't have what you have here. People that didn't want to work, then they were punished. There's work to be done.
Yeah.
There are streets to sweep. There are dams to be built and wells to be dug. There's so many things that need to be done. I wasn't even around at the time, but during the Depression in America, the financial situation was destroyed practically by all the crookedness there. But people didn't have work. There was no work. But then I think he was a good president. Franklin Delano Roosevelt, he started the Civilian Conservation Corps. And he employed people in building roads and building dams and making state parks. And he utilized, and people were paid. They were worked in physical labor, but they got a pay. They had a job with the government, and the government engaged them to do the things that needed to be done in order for society to grow. So that's the way government should be, that everyone has a job, not like where people get paid thousands for a university education and then there's no job. So it's not, of course, people are learning that a university education isn't exactly required. If a person is an entrepreneurial spirit, then he can also create his own job like that. So people are learning. But society has to be run by qualified people who understand that it's their duty to serve God by organizing society. They have to have that intelligence. And there's 4 classes. There's the Sudras, the workers. A worker, it's not such an easy thing to build a wall. Build a wall. You put the brick there, you put the cement here, and you mix it up. You put the bricks on. You have to be taught how to do that. Gurujun Prabhu was one of our great educators in ISKCON. He was sent out. He was actually, he was sent to Hong Kong, when he was like 2 years a devotee. But when he was 1 year a devotee, he and another devotee, Toshan Krishna, they left to New York and went to Chapel Hill, North Carolina, to start a temple. And they didn't have funds, so they got jobs. And he got a job as a bricklayer. And he wrote Srila Prabhupada and told him that I'm learning how to lay bricks. And when I go to New Vrindavan, I'll teach the devotees how to lay bricks. And Prabhupada wrote back saying, this is Brahmana. Learn something and teach others. And teach others. So a Shudra, you put the brick there, it doesn't go walking off some other way. It doesn't tell you to go, what are you doing? I don't want to be here, I want to be somewhere else. The brick, you put it there, it stays there. The cement, you mix it, you put it together, you line it up, it doesn't go walking off. So that takes a certain amount of intelligence to deal with things. Then you have the Vaishyas. The Vaishyas deal with things that have their own minds, like cows and sheep and even plants. They're living things and they do what they like to a certain degree. So you have to have the intelligence, more intelligence than just dealing with things, to deal with living creatures. Then you have the Kshatriyas. They have to deal with the most difficult animal, the one that walks around on two legs. That's the most difficult animal. And then the Brahmanas deal with the self, the soul. So according to one's characteristics, the spiritual master will train a young person in the qualities that they have. There's a famous story about one boy. He had seen that all the young persons were going to this guru. So he went to the guru, and the guru asked, well, what is your gotra? What is your gotra? And he said, I don't know. Well, so who's your father? Well, I don't know. Go ask your mother. And his mother was a prostitute. So he asked, mother, who's my father? And she admitted to her son, well, I don't know. I don't know. I've had so many men. I don't know who your father is. So the boy was honest, and he went back to the guru and told him, my mother says she doesn't know. So because he was so straightforward and honest, the guru knew his father was a Brahmin. His father was an honest person. So that story is there. Generally, the guru can tell what the characteristics are, and therefore a person is trained in what would be the best service, how they can best utilize their abilities and talents in serving society. Serving society. Not that I'll get a job that makes the most money and I'll be happy and I'll have my fancy everything, and to hell with everybody else. Because eventually the whole thing crumbles. If we don't think, just like the people who were living in South Africa, I'm not a political scientist, but when we were traveling around sending paintings, we would go into the Free States, and sometimes there would be offices of Bantu education, like that, which was practically non-existent. The government understood that you don't want to educate the African people. And now, of course, the country is suffering because of that. If the government at the time had understood that when you're only 5% of the population, sooner or later, the tables will turn. So if they'd had the intelligence, real intelligence, to treat people nicely, then when independence came, then hundreds of thousands of people wouldn't have left the country because they didn't expect any better treatment than they gave to the people. They didn't expect, in fact, they expected worse. So that was foolishness. So people are like that, or societies become like that, where people don't care for their brothers or sisters. But that doesn't help because the taxes that everyone's paying are just going into grants for people who haven't been shown, not just gifted with money, but shown how to care for themselves and to make a way for themselves. So because of that, we have the civilization, the society, or the country that we have. Sorry. Oh, Hare Krishna. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna instructs Arjuna to fight using violence as service to him. We can see in the modern age the world is controlled by demons from education, educational field, church, temples, government, the food, everything. The system is controlled by demons. And mostly devotees are also taking part of demoniac system. What's our duty as devotees? To annihilate the demoniac system. So the system is there. It's being run by demons, but a system is a system. In the fourth chapter, Krishna says, Chatur Vanyam Maya Shristam Guna Karma Vibhavasha. So and as we were explaining, there's four divisions in society. There are the Shudras, the Vaishyas, the Kshatriyas, and the Brahmins. They're there. Krishna created that system. Even though it's being run by demons, the basis is still there. So what is required is leaders with devotion. Srila Prabhupada didn't particularly encourage us, even though myself, I was involved for some time in collecting for a devotee political party. Does anybody know what the name of the political party was? On the back of the American dollar, there's a slogan.
God we trust.
In God we trust. That was the name of the political party. And we collected funds. We collected funds at rock and roll concerts. We would go and distribute incense and collect donations from the kids going into the concerts like that. And we traveled all over eastern United States to do that. And we were going to run Balavanta Prabhu for the mayor of Atlanta. In fact, he had already run for the mayor of Atlanta. And he had been involved in a debate with this other gentleman who was running for mayor. And this other gentleman said, if you make me mayor, I will have garbage collected twice a week. So when Balavanta got up to speak, he says, if you elect me mayor, I will make him the garbage man. He will be the garbage. He'll be in charge of garbage collection. So that's not the point of government, really. Government's more than that. That's a part of good society. If the garbage, the sanitation workers go on strike, there's a big problem. Big problem. It's like the teachers and the different people are going on strike at university. They do so in order to get higher wages. Question: will humanity ever learn from violent wars against one another? Well, as long as we're slaughtering animals, poor animals, there'll always be war. So as long as people don't understand or accept that there'll always be war when innocent animals are needlessly killed, there'll always be war. We're part of a interfaith group that's pushing for world peace. But if you mention something simple like close the slaughterhouses, if you want to eat meat, then go and kill it yourself. It's not just go down to the Checkers or the Pick and Pay and it's nicely packaged. Because on the other side of the packaging, there's slaughter, there's pain, there's a disaster. And as long as poor animals are being killed, then our children will have to be killed in wars like that. So it's 2 + 2 = 4. The people won't accept. They won't accept. So we'll always have the war. What meditation technique gave you the greatest insight into yourself and your place in the world? Of course, that all comes from chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. Everything comes from the chanting. So we are beginners in many ways, even when we may be chanting for years, we're still beginners in the chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Because if we were chanting, of course, chanting is the most important thing, but we have to chant without offense, without misunderstanding, without disrespect. So that may take some time due to our previous contamination. But the more we chant, then the more we become purified. The more we become purified, the more we really see Krishna present in his deity form, Krishna present in his name, Krishna present in his words. And then when we can see Krishna everywhere, then we'll be his pure servants and pure devotees. So that's a process. It can be gradual or it can be quick. And the most important part, most essential part of devotion is to find pure devotees like Srila Prabhupada and take advantage of their guidance and their instruction. And that will make all the difference to the society that we have, which is gradually falling into disrepair. Disrepair. We know in different parts of the country, during apartheid, at least there were good roads. There were good roads, and now some places there are potholes everywhere. So the infrastructure will collapse more and more as the people who are supposed to be caring for those activities are only interested in their own selfish gratification. So that's what the society is creating. Society is creating people who are simply interested in their own selves, their own selves. And therefore, even if they have a big position in government, they're just using that position to accumulate whatever they can. Just when the COVID had just begun, the government was organizing food parcels for people. And then there was one counselor who had taken all the food parcels for so many needy people, and he was storing them in his garage. And when they found out, then I don't even think they got rid of him. Probably they just took the food parcels. Maybe he was selling them or something. But this was a person elected or chosen to help people in his community, and he had no idea what that meant. He had no idea. So devotees have to become those persons who are willing to take charge of the care of people in society. And we have to learn ultimately that for our own benefit, we have to help others. Hare Krishna. And the best help is to give them Krishna. Give them Krishna's name, Krishna's philosophy, Krishna's food, and everything to do with Krishna consciousness. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So I think the next part of the program is Guru Puja to Srila Prabhupada. So everyone can stand. And for everything that Srila Prabhupada has done, crossing the ocean in a cargo ship and experiencing heart attacks and seasickness, one thing we can do today is offer him a flower. You can offer a flower to Prabhupada's lotus feet.